Greetings again. Can you help me understand? What hope is there for females who have lost their divinity due to having more than 4 partners? I'm not sure if the person asking the question is a female or male. There is hope as long as we free Baba Yanun, because I read the breakdown, the one called, I think, the heart. I'm gonna try and find it, where the master said that. In fact, let me find it, because it answers the question much better than I can by way of Parnabab Yanun. And but as I'm looking for that, in the meantime, we have to remember that when we're dealing with females and we're dealing with our offspring and the future, we have to be realistic that a lot of what is being taught is really in preparation for the next generation. Yeah, the reading is on the UnitedSabiansWorldwide.com site. When you click on the image of Parnabab Yanun, or click here to ask questions, the reading is called The Heart Seat. Yeah, it's one of the ones on that page. But as you read that, the last line, the number 44, it says, once you have lost your pure holy divine seed by having more than 3 males in your DNA, can you regain your divine pure holy seed before you leave this life? And the answer Parnabab Yanun gives is yes, you can. Now, you would have to read the whole of that. I'm just going to go through it again slowly, how you get to it. So from the actual UnitedSabiansWorldwide.com website, if you click on the picture of Nabab Yanun, or where it says click here to ask your questions, you see a number of readings, right? When you scroll down to where you see the eyes, you see a number of readings. One of them is called a heart seat. It's quite short. And yeah, read that. And the question, because it's talking about exactly what you're asking about, the females and having more than 1 male. I don't know if I should read it, actually. I'm not sure if we got enough time. I might read some of it. Let me just see if I can read it from... Okay, I'll read from verse 10. It says, you have 4 chambers to your heart. This is symbolic of your being, feelings, love, emotion, and family, and how you affect the future. That was 11. 12. If you have 1 other male in your life as a mate, and you digest, consume, or absorb his bodily fluids, only that would replace your father's XY, right? Because you already have your father's XY to begin with. 13. His Y will dominate your father's. 14. It will still be a part of your past, yet this is the making of your future, of your feminine bloodline. 15. So your first chamber of your heart seat is shared with the love of your father and the love of this new XY male, your mate, consort, husband. 16. Solar plexus, male, soulmate. 17. So the inner sun's light is still burning bright, and it's even seen in your eyes and your face when you look at that man you love, and your physical body reacts to his presence when around you. 18. You're still a whole female deity with full mitochondrial DNA power. 19. If you break up with this first or second man in your life, first your father, second this mate and your love life returns to the first. You're changed because you took in your second male's XY's Y, his seed. 20. his semen, sperm, and his male testosterone, his male hormones, and that has become part of you and your future DNA wise. 21. And if you meet a third male and become attracted to him and engage in sexual acts with him, and your body takes his XY male hormones, testosterone, semen, and sperm. 22. Then a new war begins in your body. 23. The male hormones fight your female hormones. 24. This is why when a male or female decide to try and change genders, they have to take pills and shots of the opposite sex to have physical and mental change. 25. Well, this also happens to you when you as a XX female take in many mates, XY into your body. 26. You change, and depending on how many, by age 46, you have internal changes you don't even realize. 27. Your mind, body, and spirit all become more masculine than feminine. 28. By the time you have taken in 4 men, this is what you're asking, your inner feminine solar light is dimmer and dimmer. 29. You no longer know how to love or truly feel. Devotional love or true emotional love. 30. You have taken in too many Y chromosomes and hormones and testosterone of males. 31. This is why you have to protect and teach your daughters how they affect your family future by her mitochondrial DNA. 32. In the West, by the children of the devil and their daughters taught you to swallow as something good for your skin. 33. They lied to you. 34. Oral sex is from them and does affect your body, just as is said, you are what you eat and drink. 35. One and only one male, your soulmate, that is okay for whatever kinds of sex. 36. Yet, multi-males in your life have affected your mitochondrial DNA and your family's future. What was in each male's history is now in your history. That includes sickness, diseases, and even insanities. 37. The Western world and their lack of morals, free open sex with whomever, has affected our whole Salau race by getting the cursed seed of their women genetic markers, mark of the beast, while their women is ever ready to drink a black male's divine seed. 38. So, this is what I meant by more than 3 males and your divine light dims and goes out. 39. You have confused your inner divine female deity. 40. So you were misled by the seed of the devil. 41. Don't make the same mistake with your daughters. 42. Teach them this message from your ancestors. 43. Protect our divine seed if you wish to travel the stars to return home above. 44. Once you have lost your pure holy divine seed by having more than 3 males in your DNA, can you regain your divine pure holy seed before you leave this life? And the answer was yes, you can. So what I was saying is that it's not just about, obviously everyone practicing Wu-Sabat, no matter who you are, once you start to put Wu-Sabat and the teachings into practice, your life automatically becomes better because you start to do the right things. You start to behave and act properly, and it takes time for you to basically get rid of the disagreeable things you've been doing. And yes, you can say people have made mistakes, but there is still an opportunity by way of rituals that these females will have to partake. Wu-Sabat is very serious for those who are really serious about transforming. And that's why we always express that you have to come home, come in, come closer so that you can partake of some of these rituals that are enacted to help you transform yourself. All right. So it's not just about the females either, because I know that's why I was asking. I'm not sure if the person asking the question is male or female, because the male are just as bad, because you have to remember that The female's an internal being. She takes in, and the male is an external being, right? So for the females, the divine feminine, and when we say divine feminine, it's really talking about those who have actually kept themselves, pure. And that's why we're saying this has to be implemented and instilled in the young daughters. That's why the master just said in that reading that we have to teach our daughters this, so that from generation to generation, they will not make the same mistakes that the elders have done in the past. And why we say, if you read the Lotus of Life, yeah, on the Sacred Feminine by Parnabab Yanun, that is an essential reading for everyone, both young males and females, as well as the adults, because this helps the adults to know how to groom the young children. And that's why in Wu-Sabat we don't have boyfriends and girlfriends, because that's what it leads to. It leads to the females taking in too much genetic material from males, and because she's a divine being, it affects her differently. And it's important to teach them this right from the beginning, that it's okay. In the past, right, it was something to be proud of to retain your virginity, yeah, and but now it's almost like peer pressure, and everyone wants to say, oh, if you haven't, you know entered the pleasure palace at an early age, then they will make fun of you or whatever, and it's become like something that is frivolous. And nowadays, it's funny when you look at if you look at how women used to dress, even like in the Victorian days, right? They used to wear, if you ever do some research, you'll see they used to wear like the clothing underneath and then put these gowns over them. And obviously, those big gowns that used to kind of like cover them down. And when you look at the way people are dressing on the street today, it's like they're wearing underwear. Like when you look at what they're wearing, it's almost like literally, if you compare to the past, what women used to wear to what they're doing now, it's literally like, and not to even start to talk about thongs and all of that showing, it's like it's become so degraded in the way that, and because it's made fashionable, because it's made like it's normal, you can't speak to females about certain ways of the way they're carrying themselves. That's why Wu-Sabat teaches the female how to carry themselves, how to dress, and also the males, because it's not just one-sided, it's both-sided. That's why I said that, the Lotus of Life on the Sacred Feminine by Dr. Malachi Z. York is an essential read. The whole family should really read it together, because it covers everything about our culture and why we don't, we do it in a way that the elders, our ancestors, used to do it, and it's been borrowed by other cultures where they do like arranged marriages and all of that. But it's more like you got to get to know the family of the two sides, learn about diseases in the families, learn about their DNA, their traits, and what, blood types and all kinds of things. It's not just we meet in a club and then next minute we're getting sexually active, and then the next minute you got offspring, and then all right, so let's move to the next question. And Chinyere, I hope that answered, I trust that answered your question. All right, so yeah, there's work that can be done to help them, and it's more about the future as well as the present. All right, Dorinda, Rahubat, greetings. I love Tuesdays with Saken. Thank you. I love having you guys here too. Please, I want to understand, is there any hope for those left behind in 2030? And will the planet be harmed with the change? Will it still be used for life after? Yeah, I'm doing a class this Saturday covering that topic. It's actually amazing how sometimes the questions are aligned. There's a book here, yeah? Classic. Most people probably don't even remember or have this book. It's called Let's Talk About the End by none other than the master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York. And how that ties into today in terms of the the things that are happening around the planet, which we're going to go into more detail on Saturday. But to answer your question, one of the things with us as a people, we we worry, or not worry, but we focus on the future as opposed to the present. But in our doctrine, we emphasize now, because what really exists is right now. So if we need to do something right now that can help us prepare to maybe even change the fate that may, befall us, if we don't change the course of direction or our action, but we will wait and focus on, the future. Don't get me wrong, the future is important, but the future is predicated on what we do now. So when you say, is there any hope for those left behind? I mean, it all depends on what takes place, meaning that the state that the planet may be at that time. You see what I mean? It's like, and I think just on the tail end of last week's live, somebody asked a question about, what would happen to people, etc., etc. And I was like, you have to understand that in the scriptures, etc., the religious books, they talk about, because somebody was asking about the fires, and I was saying that in the scriptures it talks about God making a promise that he will no longer destroy the planet by water, right? But with fire. And when people think about, like, for example, the Noah story, they don't realize that the Noah's flood was like the fourth time, or the fourth destruction or flood. They think that was the first one. And I've pointed out that even Genesis, you start off in Genesis with a flood. Yeah, because when you're reading that it was boho and toho, and that it was void and darkness, and there was really no land. It was just the deep. That's telling you about water. And that's why we posed the question to say, well, who is talking in Genesis, telling you the story? Or it's like giving you it's like he's narrating the story, you see. So there are crafts ready and waiting to pick certain people up if the planet gets to that point where it's completely impossible to be habitable. So when you say, is there hope for those left behind? It depends on what happens, how much destruction is taking place, because in the past, certain places were destroyed, and others, because of, like, if it's, for example, if it's atomic weapons, or radiation that comes from these types of weapons, you can't even breathe or survive on the surface. Why there were caverns, right? We speak about the center of the earth, Shambhala, and there were caverns and caves within those caverns, just like people now having bunkers, right? Equipped with everything you need to be able to survive for long periods of time. You can relate this to when the bombs were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, right? Talk about 1945 with the wars, right? The radiation, wow, the time is now 1919 on the 19th. Yeah, that's interesting. But anyway, I'm basically saying it all depends on what takes place, the meteorites that hit, or if it's war to the extent where nuclear weapons have been used, and those that are taken away will be taken away on crafts, okay? Because people always say things like, "Oh, how are we gonna get away?" But to get on the craft, you have to be one of those beings that is chosen based on your development, how you transform yourself, right? Your aura will tell who you are and what your vibration is, you see. So if you're fortunate enough to make it to the point where you get your barothry gland reactivated or reinserted, then you're in a different league. So it all depends. When you say for those left behind in 2030, And will the planet be harmed with the change? Will it still be used for life? Again, it depends on where, because like I said, just going back to the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those people, they went through hell, and the ramifications of that till this day has affected certain people, but it wasn't the entire planet. And it's the same, there was a meteorite 17,250,000 years ago, which again caused destruction. There were destructions where the dinosaurs and certain life forms were eradicated, and there were other, so there was another one 2,250,000 years ago. So every time there's been this level of catastrophe, some people survive and others don't, and those who were able to be led to safety were taken into the inner earth, into the caverns, and those who were picked up in the craft, like I said, the Noah story was about a craft, and that craft picked up a number of people that were hovering above the flood. You see, so there are always options for those chosen ones. That's why many are called, few are chosen, because it's really down to how much work, how much you want it. So if we want to change our fate right now, the most important thing, and even when we as those in the know tell our people what to do, they don't do it anyway. So you have to remember, people always think, and this is something I've found, like if we want to get something done, we may have the numbers, but how many people would actually do what is requested? And the thing is, many people think that somebody else is going to do it, you see. So if everyone's waiting for somebody else to do it, then what happens is very few people actually do anything. They don't mobilize so that we can avoid and have certain things in place, so we won't be talking like this. Right now, there are people who are preparing, who have bunkers with food stored for years even. Air conditioning, in the sense of the can control the atmosphere, guns, everything ready. And I'm not promoting, I'm just saying there are movies and documentaries you can watch where people are preparing, because we're in a situation where there's talk of wars, there's meteorites, they're talking about coming here to hit the planet. This is something that happens all the time, but it depends on the size of it, the magnitude of it, and where it hits and so forth, and what destruction takes place. If the grid is taken out, satellites are taken out, you hear me saying things like YouTube's not always going to be here, because that's a possibility, because the internet may not be available when these types of things take place. So it is serious time. So when we say come together, as you know, for those who don't know, we're working on a project called a 100 project, and we need support for that so that we can prepare and get certain things ready. Look at what happened with even just COVID the other day. People were losing their minds over toilet paper. So imagine, that's not even food. So these things are very real and possible, but we also have the power collectively, right? If there's a lot of us, because there's always the small minority at the top ruling the majority, who unfortunately they're not preparing, they're not studying, they're not learning, and they're still caught up in someone is going to come and save me mentality, like the religious people teach. So they're just waiting for someone else to come and save them, when you're able to save yourself or ourselves. So I hope that's answered that question. All right, let's keep going. Ubura Rahubat, watching from Delta, Nigeria. Good to have you on board, Rahubat. Okay, question. Should our brothers and sisters living in the West migrate back to Africa because of the disaster the West will face from now to 2030? Yeah, it makes sense. Excuse me. It makes sense. But at the end of the day, not everyone's gonna follow that route. But yeah, it does make sense. And that's why I'm saying that people are working and preparing with all kinds of solutions. And if you come close, you'll get to know what we're doing. But yeah, that makes sense. Um, Dakel Elmar Asup, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Bay. Peace and love. My question, it's about the blood types, O positive or negative. Okay. What's the question? You didn't ask. You said peace and love. My question, it's about the blood types. Oh, you're gonna ask it probably. Okay. Somebody else is coming before you. Okay. How are they at the same blood type is every race? How did that happen? Yeah, we've covered that many, many times. Originally, there were only positive blood types on the planet. And there's a book we've got called The Muslim's Creed that goes into that in detail. But and other books as well. But originally there were only positive blood types. The others came by way of mixtures. Okay. And then you started to have whether it's or R negative or R positive. So what was the question? How are they the same? Yeah, so there are different blood types, and the extraterrestrials blood type got mixed because when you read like books that try to explain how we all came about, most of the time you will get a biblical account, or shall I say a religious account, with the story of God, Allah taking the dust of the ground, creating a man, excuse me, a man, which is, and then the rib is taken, excuse me, I was trying to time that. Yeah, then the rib is taken out of the man to create a woman. And then everyone on the planet is supposed to come out of these two people called Adam and Eve. But we know, as you say, that that's not accurate because we have different races, different blood types, different complexions, different traits, as in we have hair, every race has a unique trait, right? And so that wouldn't work in terms of saying we all come from the same two people. However, we're also told that beings came down, like in Genesis 6:4, the Nephilims. Other people talk about the Anunnaki and all these beings coming down and mixing with the the beings that were already here to produce offspring. And that's how the different blood types and different races came about because of hybrids from other, like shaggy beings from Sirius, or like we talked about the Anunnaki, or do you know what I mean, the Pleiadians and beings from different star constellations coming here. So today, if you look at the rulers or the people in the elite, as they say, of their society, they are all related by blood, and it's normally Rh negative blood types. You see, and now because of the mixtures with, you know, what people may know as the slave trade, which we know was a kidnapping because of the blood, because blood plays a major part when you start to study hemophiliacs and study the fact that certain races couldn't keloid and they needed to mix blood with the negroid. It goes all the way to what you're calling the vampires and the, the whole thing that we teach about Dracula, even though it's made into a movie, it's talking about a being that comes out at night because he can't take the sun, because he lacks melanin, and that he needs to drink blood and subsist off of people's blood. Everything comes down to the blood. And so they keep the bloodlines within particular families that rule the world. If you start to look at these families like the Rothschilds, when they have these Bilderberger meetings, or you have, there's so many families that are the ones. If you look at the history, look at the War of Roses between the Lancasters and the Yorks. It's all dealing with vampirism, and look at the whole Abraham story. You're going to start to see all of this stuff, right? So even the fact that you still have blood banks up until today where they store blood. And yeah, it's a big story, but what I'm basically saying to you is that it all comes down to the blood types, and that's why it's important to know what blood types people have when you're mixing with, because even sickle cell, there's so much things that are based on knowing the genetics and the traits and the blood types of things like that that people have. So yeah, that's how we got to that. Okay, let me go back because I had to jump to answer your question. Um, I'm glad that I caught you live because I'm always at work. This is from Sean Arnold. I'm always at work on your live time, but I do rewatch you after. Okay, no problem, Sean. Welcome aboard. Everyone, remember to press that like button. Yeah, because all these little things really help us to continue to do what we do. If you haven't done so already, this is a good time for you to do it. Just hit that like button. It only takes 2 seconds. Share the videos, of course. Subscribe and become a member. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, someone was answering. April was answering the question I already did. Okay, good. It was just saying that yeah, you can regain your divinity, and yeah, it's about stopping the crap right now. Stop sleeping around. Do all the cleansing rituals that we have. Okay, Atumre Kamet, Rahubat Muesar, Wul Nafir Masut, Nakukarod Kaum, Arod Kum Kawes Wu Ashuk, Haradum Lahe Pala Nabab Mulmad, Baba Yanon Haradum, Biye, Tulsa, Oklahoma, USA. Yeah, nice. Rahubat family, and good evening. Um, I am we're doing good, and a shook freedom to Panabab, the master, Baba Yanun, freedom by way of Tulsa, Oklahoma, USA. Yeah, absolutely. It's all about Kafushdom. It's all about the freedom and of Panabab Yanun, and for ourselves, because we think that it's him that is incarcerated and not having his freedom. Without him, we are also without our freedom. So this is why I was saying with that first question, let's focus. You know how much we could do in literally a day, a week, a month, if we just cooperated as he has asked of us by way of love and unity. Right now, it's very important that you gather at your stores and get involved and help with what is necessary to help with the freedom fight and to help with the rebuilding of our tribe, family, nation. Okay, let's keep going. How can we protect our mind? Where is it? Where is the score? Yeah, we got it right there, the mind. That's how you start. And the thing is, we keep telling you every question you ask, there's a book on it, right? So the first thing to do is digest that information, like the mind. You want to know about your mind? Read the mind scroll. It will completely change your life. And then you move on to the next thing, and the next one and the next one. All right. So yeah, you protect your mind by mining the jewels of your mind. As it says, mine the jewels of your mind for your soul. Read the mind scroll. That's not to be taken lightly. That's the first step. If you haven't already, read it. And if you have questions from it, then ask. All right, Bruska Noise, Rahubat Jamal. Is Ptah the one true God of the Sabians? I read this in one of the titles of the chants, Tawat Ashuk. I think what happens is when people use the word God, right? Not only does it detract from the titles. So, for example, if people say it's Ptah God, right? You've reduced the actual meaning or the word of Ptah to God, because God is a word that you've got from an English translation of what they call a religious book from a God who doesn't exist. So that means somebody is writing that. And I'm saying that to say that it's like when you ask even a Muslim, what does Allah mean? And they will say God, which doesn't make sense. I did a video with a Muslim. If you haven't seen that, go and watch that. And I'm like, you're using a word from Arabic and translating it to say it means something in English. The word God means so much different things to so many people. If you ask a Mason, what is God? They won't translate God as the way you see it, because they just use the letters God, you see, which is a description of a being, which is wisdom, a being that has wisdom, that has strength, that has beauty. That's what Goma Oz and Dabar translate as. So I'm saying Ptah is Ptah. But because people want to bring it to English, they will say it's Ptah. I know where you're coming from because it's written that way. But things are written or sometimes are taught in a certain way for clarity of understanding until you learn more. So Ptah is the one, the opener, the first, the being that paves the way, right? So yes, in that sense, but when you say true God, you kind of bring it back to a religious, you bring it to a religious mindset, because then whatever you have in your mind, that when you hear that word God, you've been programmed with it for many years to be associated with. The minute you say it, you have a picture in your mind. And that picture may be like a white man with a white beard in heaven. You see, so you can't, it's not an equivalent. You cannot say that. Yeah. So if you wanted to say it like the way I explained it, yes, that's true. That will be fine. Because every race will have an image of what they consider to be, I use the word because you used it, God, in their likeness. So if you wanted to do that kind of equivalent, then yes, you could say that. Because if you say to the Christian, and this is where the problem comes in, because when we talk about God being weak and not being able to like do certain things, people might get it misconstrued that we're saying there is, we're not saying there is no God, but what we're saying is there are different gods to different people. And if your God is the God that you're thinking is someone that is gonna punish you, put you in hell, do all the things that you see the God of the Bible doing, we're saying that's not our definition of God. Someone who's gonna send his son to come and do things that he's supposed to be able to do himself by clicking his fingers, or send angels to go and do things that he's supposed to be able to do. You see, so the definition of the concept or what you call God is not the same in our culture and our stories, right? So we have to give you the true stories of what we call God or what we consider God. And in our case, that will be our ancestors, you see. So we don't subscribe to the same gods as the religious or the monotheistic religious people do. It's a big, big difference. Our God doesn't need to be scared of questions. Our God doesn't need to punish you. Our God doesn't need to drown you and drown animals. Our God doesn't need sacrifices of blood or animals. Our God doesn't tempt you to unalive your child. Our God doesn't prepare a place called hell for you to suffer forever. That's not a loving, caring God. And when you see these things being done, then you have to say to yourself, what kind of being will do that? Then you look on the planet today and you see the people that follow that type of a God, they doing the same thing in terms of, the warring, the divisions, fighting amongst each other, and on and on and on. So, yeah, the Wu-Sabat way or culture and our deities are completely different, all right? So I hope that answered that question for you about Ptah. Thank you so much for your response. All right, no worries. Who's next? Atumre. Okay, Atumre Kamek. Greetings, family, and good afternoon. I wish you all well and divine love, freedom for the master teacher. Pan. Oh, that was translation. Yeah, I did my best, and we're on point. Yeah, well done. Can't hear you guys. Oh, we covered already. I hear about beings. This is Check Chaser. I hear about beings headed to Earth this November. I doubt anything from the news nowadays. I believe Wu-Sabat. Do you know of this? And are these the beings you spoke of in Food for the Gods? Again, beings are already here. They've been here. Some are coming. Beings come and go all the time. But yes, there are many extraterrestrial beings that have plans and agendas for this planet. So yeah, it depends on where you're saying you heard it from, because we don't get a source. And with Wu-Sabat, we always encourage people to tell us where did you hear this from, who's saying it, why are they saying it, and but yeah, we've done a whole video on aliens and the beings are here already that are ruling the planet pretty much. But when we talk about, yeah, the food for the god beings, they've been taking food. This is what we're saying to people all the time. All the people, like, I could go into so much detail about it, but again, not everything is, publicly displayed. But there are so many things in front of your face that you should be able to look and see that are taking place, right? Missing people that never get accounted for. People that are being, you know, transferred from one place to another to, where no one knows them, no family, nothing. And people disappearing all the time, So the food for the God doctrine we've been teaching, in fact, Partner Babylon was the first one to start teaching about it. And as usual, whenever he teaches us something new that no one else is teaching on the planet, people might not take it seriously at first, but as time goes on, you start to see it. You know what's actually amazing? If you go on YouTube, on the internet, and search, you will find that a lot of the things that we teach, that we've been teaching for years, many, many other people are teaching it now. But the thing is, when we were teaching it, it was like we're crazy or we're something different than when anybody else is teaching it. So what we're saying is, just do your research, Google, check things out. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure why that Evelyn has listed all those names, but let's keep going. There is an echo. Is that still going on? Okay, we fixed that. All right, cool. All right, what's the next question? Life is a blessing. Does the universe work as space time or consciousness? Thanks in advance for your reply. Yes. But the thing is, let me see if I can explain this. Yeah, okay, let me explain it like this. You see, there are formulas, right, in things. And when you are in tune and you learn the formula to something, that formula generally aligns with everything else. What do I mean? Like, for example, if you learn music, if you want to learn music, because music deals with what? Tones, frequencies, and vibrations. And you have what they call a scale, right? We did a video where I was explaining about levels and scales. If you haven't seen it, it's coming out soon. But the point is, those 8 notes, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. The do is the beginning and the end because it's a cycle, right? Because there are 7 notes plus the octave, which is the 8th note, and then it starts all over again. Now, if you master those notes and understand that each one of those notes is in the position, let's say we'll call that position major, you can have, and that relates to life in the sense of you can be positive one day. I done that the wrong way around. Negative one way, I'm positive the other day. So between those two states of happy and sad, it's the same when you look at a note, right? So one note can be flat or sharp, and then that will apply to all the other notes. And then when you take those 7 or 8 notes and apply that to anything else, like, so that's a language, right? It's a formula. And once you learn the formula, you know, like, for example, musicians will know what I'm talking about. You take the first, the third, and the fifth, right? You get a triad, 3 notes. And the third can be flattened or what we would call make it into a minor. Minor is down and sharp is up, right? So you can then start to build the blocks from those notes to form 3 notes, giving you a triad, or 4 notes, and then you start to add different notes to get variations and colors and so on, right? Now, those same notes are the same notes I have written every single song on the planet, right? Because once you know the basic formula, you can build on top. It's the same. You will take that now and apply it to language. You'll have the same thing where you have the alphabet. You learn the alphabet, you learn the tones of the alphabet, and look at the only really 3 tones are e, u, or we say the vowels, right? A, E, I, O, U. Right. So you learn that, and then you now start to put those letters together to form words. The words then form, sentences. Sentences form paragraphs. Paragraphs form chapters. Chapters can form a book. No matter how big the book is, no matter how small the book is, that's the formula. Now you apply that to colors, apply that to sound, apply that to the universe. You can apply that basic formula to everything and it will all align because it just works. So when you're starting to deal with life in general, it's about understanding the basic foundations and the formula, and then you apply that to the different realms, right? We know that you can apply that to mathematics, right? Because mathematics is a science. And so you start to look at formulas, you can start to see how, let's say, for example, there's a tone, a resident tone of the planet, which is on 432 hertz. And you apply that to the realms, you're like, okay, there's the bottom realms, the physical realm, the spiritual realm, the soul realm, the mental realm, the etheric realms, going all the way to 9 ether. Again, that's a building block. And then it starts all over and over. Then you look at the universe. You look at how universes are formed and how the stars explode to form other stars or to form star systems with planets, and it's the same throughout. So when you are awakened or awoke, as they say, you apply that to the chakras, right? People tell you about the 7, but obviously, like we say, 9 is the highest number. So for us, we have 2 more. So you can literally apply the basic foundations once you're open, once you're awake, to everything. So when you say, does the universe work as a spectrum? Sorry, as space time and matter they work in union, right? And that's what we refer as the SMAT circle, because space, matter, and time, right? And so when you're saying consciousness now, again, you're saying there's levels of consciousness, right? There's levels of subconsciousness, which is underneath, right? So your question is very, very good, but you have to start to look at things from a holistic point of view and to realize that when we say the universe, we're probably just thinking and talking about our universe. And we start to look, well, how far back do we go to the birth of the universe? And then now you start to talk about going into trillions and trillions of years, because there are other universes. How do you know? That no one would teach you about the multiverses if there wasn't other universes or the omniverse. You see, so you have to learn the basics to be able to apply the formula to everything. It's like language. Once you learn one language, especially the root language, Miss Batia, our language, because people will say, no way you can speak so many languages. But then if all the languages come from the one original language, you can see the relationship. And that's why it's easy for you to be able to learn all the others once you learn the root language, the foundational language. You see, so it's not that deep. And this is why people say, once you awoke, when you're a genius, or you unlock your DNA, or you unlock that God gene, you start to see everything as one. That's why we teach about Pa'ut, the all expanding. You see, so yes, in terms of space, matter, and time, it depends on where you are, because there are also different rules on the different realms, right? So if you're in a place where there's no gravity, the rules are going to be completely different. In the spiritual realm, there are different rules. You see, so in the material world, or the plane that we're in now, which is just underneath the plane of force, different rules. You see, so but learning the basics will help you to apply the formula to other situations. If I haven't answered, I think I have, but if I haven't answered your question, just ask, and we'll go into more details or clarification. Yeah, please keep liking. That helps us with the algorithm and so on. You know how it works. So like, share, share, share. Let's get more people on here. Okay, let me see if there are new questions. Yeah, of course, I keep forgetting to mention our Telegram group, which is posted in the chat. Join that Telegram group, because you can continuously ask your questions. Yeah, let me say something about that as well, because when you come on the Telegram group, take the time. If you really are interested in making advances in your development, in your learning, take the time to search for things you want to know. There's a search facility. Take your time to read through previous questions and answers. And so you don't come and you're asking a question that has been asked many, many times before. All right. But yeah, the Telegram is a good source of information. And we encourage everyone to join the Telegram group. You can call live now, actually, if you want as well. Don't forget, because we are live. And the number to do so on is area code for the UK +44 753 996 3822. That's +44 753 996 3882. All right, call in live and ask a question if you would like to. When does white people's goes to when they die? Ubura, I don't understand your question fully, but we tell you all the time, it's not about white people or black people, all right? It's about whether you elevate, transform, change yourself so that you can make it. There are a specific group of people known as the Adamites that have been judged and their time is up. Of course, nowadays, most people don't even know who the Adamites are. So the Adamites is who we're saying that their time is up and it's extinction time for them. They've been removed before the year 2030. That's what you're referring to. But the whole white people and black people thing is overplayed. There's no such thing as white people or black people. You have to be specific of who we're talking about, and not everyone is of the same. You have to look at, you know, who are we talking about? Yeah, so that's who we're talking about when we say they will be removed off the face of the earth. That's by 2030. And a lot of things are going to take place before then, which will affect anybody if you're not in the right place under the right guidance and protection, which of course is Wu-Sabat. Will Amun-Re, the sun god, reincarnate back in this day and time? You mean Amun-Re, if that's what you're referring to? The sun is already here. The sun is here. The sun is what people are talking about when they're talking about global warming and the effects of the sun, or more importantly, the ultraviolet rays of the sun that are damaging to people who cannot live under the sun or cannot take the sun. And a lot of people have they've messed up their being. So in terms of their DNA, in terms of their melanin and so on. So it's about learning to cleanse. All right. And yeah, so Amun-Re is the sun is already here. And you with those beings, okay, the reincarnation part, let me address that. When people use the word reincarnation, I don't know if you're thinking about it in a way like, I don't know how you think this is going to happen. Like, do you think people just wake up out of the grave and they're here? No. Reincarnation is dealing with us and the beings on the planet. You have a sun within you, right? That sun is a ray, as in when you look at the sun rays, that's what you're really saying. When you look in ancient Egypt, there's a diagram of the sun, then you have the rays coming down from the sun. Those rays are representing each one of us who has a solar plexus. And that sun within you is a replica of the sun 93 million miles away that was created 93 billion years ago, right? That sun, you are a ray or a reflection of that sun if you activate. And that's what we're calling reincarnation, when you bring that divine being in you back to life. How you're going to do that is by the remembering tool of who and what you are, by way of the doctrine of Wu-Sabat that will reactivate that sun, which then will help you to switch on the other lights, which people refer to as the chakras, right? That then helps you to transform your being from a physical being to a spiritual being, where you're turning yourself inside out, becoming who you're supposed to be. That's the reincarnation. But many people haven't got to that point yet where they're turning that light bulb or switching on. That's what Wu-Sabat is here to do. And those who are listening to the videos, watching the videos, studying, we know people that take this seriously, that have been with us, supporting us from the get-go, and they're actually studying the scrolls so they can turn themselves on or reincarnate. And to do that, you have to stop the things that are making you stay on low vibration, stopping you from elevating into the divine being you're supposed to be. But everyone has the opportunity and the choice. If you don't do it, you've judged yourself. You see, so the beings on the planet worldwide that are actually, many people use terms like the Christ consciousness, the dimensional shift, the awakening. You know, many people are waking up. and reactivating, and then they start to remember who they are. Remember the word Re or RE is the first part of remember. So you start to remember who you are. Then the read. You say read when you look at the word read, read. Yeah? These are the ways you activate the rays of sun within you. And then that helps you to start to ignite the rest of you as a light being, which the higher form you go to when you elevate as a light being is a pure energy being known as an Ethereum, right? When you're an Ethereum, you're operating on the higher consciousness, right? You're able to now do things that to most people is like miraculous, because how can you be so intelligent? How can you be so able to do this, manifest things, do this, do that? How are you able to do all of these things? Because you're God. Is it not written in your laws, ye are gods? Gods and goddesses, because the word, the gender. But when we're saying God, we're saying goddesses too, male and female. It's up to you. Do you want to remain being entrapped in your body, your physical body, feeding your ego, feeding your the gluttonous, feeding the greed, feeding the jealousies, feeding all that stuff, that eating the wrong things, thinking the wrong thoughts? All of these things keep you in a mortal state instead of in a godly state. And your reptilian nature, or the physical animal, the mammal in you, right, is what everybody advertises to or markets to keep you basically not focusing on the inner being or focusing on the higher conscious being that you are. And it's down to you how much you allow that to happen. So you have people that are in misery, that are down and out, that think they can't do anything. They create their hell. They create the reality that they see. And then you look at the gods that they worship, they do nothing but create that type of energy. So it's no surprise that if you're that way, then your God or your deity is not helping you to be the other way. Then you have other people who are optimistic, they're bubbly, they're buzzing, they got they got a bright future, they're happy, they're smiling, they get along with people, they work with people. Wu-Sabat. That's what it's there to do. So yeah, the reincarnation takes place within you, my brother and sister. So I hope that's giving you, I trust that's helping you with the reincarnation. So it's not just waiting on Amun Ra to reincarnate, or waiting on a Jesus or a Muhammad or a Buddha or someone else to come, because all they taught you was you have the same power and abilities. You are the same as me. You see, so people don't take that on, because it comes with responsibility. Don't get me wrong, it's not easy. Yeah, because if you want the glory, no pain, no gain. So be prepared to do the work and go through it, but you will feel better at the end of it, because you will be in a better position. We got cool? Okay. Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, people, everybody wants the glory, everybody wants to have the power, but don't forget the final hour. You've got to put the work in. I think Lauren Hill said that you can have the money, you can have the power, but don't forget the final hour. You got to be ready, you got to be prepared, and we're here to help you. That's what we're doing, but you got to do your part. All right, so everyone's welcome to join the Telegram group. All right, Ryan Lewis. I heard on a medical research theory that the first baby born leaves its DNA in the womb forever, and a small percentage of its DNA is carried on to any baby born thereafter. Please input. It's not please input. If you're asking us a question, you're asking us a question. The DNA comes from the father, so the father leaves their DNA. This is what I was reading at the beginning when we were saying that when a female mixes with a male, it actually leaves an imprint of that male within her. And so when she, say, maybe meets another male and has a child, this is what the master was teaching us. That becomes known as a three-parent birth, where you have the first mate of male's DNA plus the females, and then the second male. This is why it's important that a woman or female is supposed to leave enough time and gap to repair her DNA and to heal herself and to remove, you know, the male. But unfortunately, that's supposed to take between 7 and 9 years. So most females don't generally wait that long, and they may have another child. And this is where sometimes when they do the paternity test, you know, all these shows where they go on and say, oh, I want to know if that's my son or my child. They do the DNA and they may come and say, no, it's showing the DNA of the other person. And now uproar because people don't know or take the time to learn the sciences, you see. So sometimes it's not understanding or overstanding what's going on. Yeah. So again, we always say, I heard, or I read, or this one said that, or this person said that. It's not helpful. We need to know the actual, yeah, where we're getting the what's the source, because we will have to know who's saying what and whether what they're saying is actually correct. But yeah, in terms of the principle of, yeah, DNA being passed on to other children, that's correct. Are the pale Arabs Caucasians? Well, you have to look at every race and go back to how did they come about. Yeah, so it's again a broad question when we say pale Arab. The pale Arab, the first Arabs, the original first Arabs were, if you have to go back to the beginning, you're dealing with Abraham, right? Having an Egyptian wife and producing a son called Ishmael, right? Those are the original Arabs. But then you had other beings coming into Egypt and mixing with those original, much like you have all over the planet today, where you have mixtures, and then you have, when we talk about like the Hyksos dynasties and the Phoenicians and people that came into Egypt, right? They were referred to as the Hyksos, right? The Hyksos dynasty. That's dealing with these Europeans. So that's why today, when you go to Egypt, you have different parts of Egypt, right, where you have like the original inhabitants have been pushed away or pushed away, like to like Aswan, you know, because you got today you will land in the capitals like Cairo, and then you'll have Luxor, you got Cairo, Luxor, Aswan, you know, there are many different parts, and like you got Sharm el Sheikh, which is now like the tourist attraction. So yeah, the original people of pretty much all the lands were original Negroid. Yeah, all right, let's go for it.
What is exactly on the other side of Antarctica?
That's funny. Exactly what's on the other side. Like, it's funny. Yeah, I'm gonna go into a bit of that on the class on Saturday because that class goes into some of that. But
I play it again yet.
okay, I think I heard it though.
No. What? Can you let me know what is exactly on the other side of Antarctica?
Okay, all right. When you say exactly, yeah, there are beings. In fact, we have this scroll, the Psalms, no, the Proverbs of Yanun, and other scrolls that show you how the original people, beings that came on this planet were, they settled where you're calling Antarctica, yeah? And then from there is where, you know, the location of what people call egg island, and from there you see how the migrations took place and different people went in different directions. There are many extraterrestrials that settled there, and even in that scroll Shambhala and Agartha that I was mentioning, we've got that available. Cities within, all right, it goes into and telling you about extraterrestrials that settle there. So a lot of what people are talking about, why they can't go there and why it is, restricted, etc., is because there are many extraterrestrial species that are there, and people have come into contact with some of them, like the grasshopper beings, and there are many species, many beings. I read an update also that explains about, for those who make it, in terms of being chosen to receive their barothry gland, they will be taken there for it to be reinserted. When you look at what was going on with Hitler, for example, even in the wars I mentioned about, 1945, it's because he was in Antarctica, because he was given technology and he was developing crafts, right? Flying saucers, and he was met, by the beings from Aldebaran, like the Ashtar Command. Yeah, so there are many different species that reside in what people are calling Antarctica. That's why there are different entrances as well into the center of the earth. So crafts will go in from the North Pole and the South Pole, and they will go into the caverns, or they will go to Antarctica. And even when we had that whole thing with the orbs last year, right? A lot of sightings were seen around there. So when you say exactly, I mean, there are videos now that have popped up. Some of them are suspicious because you can tell there's AI involvement, as in, the videos seem to be a little bit doctored or whatever, but they're showing you people that are supposedly on expeditions and going there and discovering all kinds of things, you see, because a lot of civilizations, or a lot of sites that were being built were, with the ice age and certain things, like, were covered, and they're now being uncovered, or they say discovered, but they're being recovered. And so things are going to be more and more exposed. People are talking about the pyramids now, and how they go into, because even the master teacher in the book, I think it's Shambhala Nagata, he's explaining how the step pyramids also went down into the caverns. So when you say exactly, there's a lot of information and a lot of things that you can find there. And with more and more exposure between now and 2030, a lot of things are going to be revealed. But read the scrolls and you'll find most of what people are saying they're discovering now are things we've been teaching about for 30, 40 years. So I would say, yeah, read some of the scrolls and you get more information. Another one. Okay, let's go for it.
Raubat, in second. This is Estim Butuma from South Africa. I've got a question on the book of Genesis 1:26. What does the phrase "let us make man in our own image" signifies? Because clearly, when with the moment you say us, that is not just one being that is there. Clearly, that there is just more than one being. And remember, this is a beginning of dome. This is a creation, as the Bible stated it. I just need a clarity there on that first question. Sir. Second question.
Yeah, he kind of answered his own question, but because he said Genesis 1, what? I think
Tim
126.
Butuma from South Africa.
Genesis
I've got a
126.
questions on the book of Genesis 1:26.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let me just pull it up and read it. Genesis 126. All right. Okay. Okay, here we go. Genesis 126. It says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Right, yeah, this is what, when we're saying that the graftation of the Adamites was being done, this is what you're reading here. Because in fact, when you read the Hebrew, it doesn't, the word God is Elohim, right? Elohim is plural as opposed to Elo. So that whole chapter is talking about, like you said, us. Who is the us? These are those Pleiadian beings that were grafting a new man called Adam, because the word Adam is also Edom, right? When you start to study the language, but it's really Adama, or let us make a ruddy red race, and in our image. When you say the word image, it's actually Salim in the Hebrew, right? And that means like in their nature and after their likeness, okay? And then they were given, when he says let them have dominion, all right, that's rada. That dominion means to have 6,000 years, and for them to be in control over the, like it says, the fish, over the sea, yeah. Because the word for fish as well is like daga, or you know the word dagon or dagon, right? It's dealing with the sea, the fowl of the air. Because again, air, this is where you get the word samayim, which is like up, or heavens, or up there. And it says over the cattle and over all the earth and over every creeping thing, right, that creepeth upon the earth. So they were saying to you that the Adamites were being grafted and they were being given dominion to have control over everything on the planet Earth. But this was an allotted time of 6,000 years, which ended in the year 2000 AD. And that's why that was also an experiment, because remember that the reason the Pleiadians were creating these Adamites was to be a substitute for food, so that these draconian beings that were eating them would leave them alone. They basically said to them, we will create you a substitute or a food source so that you will leave us alone. And that's what it's talking about. That whole Genesis, even though people are under the illusion that that's the beginning, because they think, you ask most religious people or Christians, what does Genesis mean? They will say the beginning, but it doesn't mean that, because the word for the name itself in Hebrew is not Genesis, it's Barashith. Yeah, bara, which means to recreate, to procreate, to redo again. And that's why you get, that whole the story from Abraham, who was really chosen by the Anunnaki, and that book is actually copied from the other books of the Sumerian tablets. So yeah, that's what that quote is talking about. And like you said, anyone with an open eye should be able to say it can't be God speaking, and the us is got to be more than one person. Even though it's translated as Elohim, we're really talking about who are the Elohim, and that these are these beings that we're calling the Anunnaki or the Anakim or the Pleiadians. They're different beings, but it just says us. All right. Okay. Oh yeah, let's go for part two.
If the Trinity is so divine, why is Mary not mentioned or included at least in the Trinity? Because she has to be considered as the priority, because she's the one who carried Jesus Christ. So
Yeah.
that will be my second question. The third question,
Wow, it's got three. Hold on. Let's do the second question. Yeah. That is sneaked one in there. Yeah, the Trinity is again another one of those, like if you're not thinking about it, you're not gonna see it the way you've just said, which is that they leave out the woman, or they leave out Mary. And that's why I mentioned Abraham, because they started to introduce a patriarch system where it's about man worship. The woman got suppressed and pushed away. That's why even the whole Adam and Eve story doesn't make sense. You can tell that it's male dominated because the man is saying woman comes from man when that's not scientifically true. The woman produces the man because everyone on the planet is born off a woman. So that's what they've done by hiding Mary, because they don't even give you Mary's family tree. You know, it's just from Adam all the way down. They just talk about the men, the men, the men, the men, the men. And so yes, it's really a quality. And in our doctrine, we have an actual fact called quality, the quality, because like you say, by removing Mary, it became male dominated, it became a patriarch system. And so, like you say, if you look at the way they express the Trinity, they say God the Father, God the Son, and then they leave out Mary and go to the Holy Ghost, right? And they say it's a Trinity. In this, the three persons in one. Even that doesn't make sense. Listen to the statement, three persons in one. Then you ask them, who are the three people? Because a person is a person. But they will say God is a person, the Father, the Son is a person, so that's two people, right? And the last one is not a person because they say it's a ghost, the Holy Ghost. So how can you say three persons in one when there's two people and one ghost? But anyway, they leave out Mary, who would be the creator of the Father and the creator of the Son, meaning males come from females. So without her, there would be a father and there wouldn't be a son. So she is really more important. So she should really be first as the mother, right? Because mothers give birth to fathers, and fathers and mothers give birth to sons. So really it will be mother, father, son, and then Holy Spirit, not the ghost. You see, so because the ghost comes out of the dead son. So it's like confusion again. That's why we tell you that religion, the way you're being given it, is not right. It's giving you wrong information. So yeah, you're right that the woman is left out, and then that plays all the way down to today, where you had men running everything. Men are, pastors, the imams, the rabbis. It's all men, men, men. The presidents, prime ministers. I mean, it's only up until recent times, after the year 2000, when their dominion was up, that you started to see the women's time, because we're living in a divine feminine era now. So the women started to come back into their power. And with Wu-Sabat, we're giving them back that divinity to be who they truly are as the goddesses of everyone on the planet. All right, let's go to the third question.
How is the serpent gets the ability to speak in Genesis 3?
Yeah.
How is the serpent gets the ability to speak in Genesis 3?
Yeah.
Last question
What? Oh, he's got another one.
on man.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's a good point, because we tell people all the time that these books are very bad mistranslations. Yeah, because Genesis 3:1, like it starts off saying that the serpent was the more, it really, depending on which version you read, this is the King James version, it says, Genesis 3:1, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. That should already ring a bell, because it says he was the most subtle, right? And as you read in certain translation, it's saying subtle, the word subtle, or he was cunning, right? If you read the whole of Genesis 3, subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. So they're basically telling you that God made the serpent to be the most trickiest and subtle and cunning beast than any other beast that he made. And he said unto the woman, you have God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. So one, they call it the serpent, but in real life, the word is not serpent in the Hebrew, right? It's actually nahas, but they say nahas. But when you look into the word, it was not a snake. It's the nahas. Nahas means to whisper. Yeah. So it was a whisperer. This person was whispering, like when you whisper and speak to somebody in a a low voice. There's nothing to do with a snake because snakes can't speak. And a woman seeing a snake talking to her would scream and run away. So this is not realistic, right? So anyway, the snake could not speak. So we're obviously telling you this is a mistranslation. He was speaking to somebody, right? And basically the snake was telling her, asking her, did God say that you shall not eat of the tree of the garden? And that tree, he said, if you eat it, and he didn't even say it. So every time you see the word God, you have to think Elohim, right? Which is more than one being. And who are these beings we're talking about? But anyway, and the woman said to her in Genesis 3:2, but they say, and the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest you will die. Again, that quote, when you read it properly, in the proper translation, it says they would die that day. And the serpent said unto the woman, this is 3:4 now, you shall not surely die. Right? Then it goes on, 3:5. For God does know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened. Right? Again, this is what I'm saying. Now, when you're reading these books without being awoke or your eyes open, you won't even think to say, what eyes are they talking about? Because obviously they can see the tree, they can see the fruit, and they can see the serpent, as they call him or it, and walk around. So they have eyes and they can see, right? But he says anyway that he said that 3:4, and the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die, for God knows that knoweth that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and you shall be as gods. So you will also become gods. And it says what? Knowing good and evil. So you're going to know the agreeable and the disagreeable beings in the garden. And then we go on to Genesis 3:6, and it says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good, for food, and that it was pleasant on the eyes, and a tree to be desired, to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. 3:7, and the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. What foolishness is that? Now they know they're naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Now check this out. This is how you know that whoever's writing this is not that smart. 3:18, and they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Do you see the mistake? Let me read it one more time, see if you catch it. Genesis 3:8, and they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden. How can a voice walk? If you read it properly, they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden. We'll give them that, but you see how silly it is. A voice cannot walk in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord. How can you hide from someone who's supposed to be everywhere? They say he's omnipresent, omnipotent. He's everywhere, knows everything, can see everyone and see everything. How can you hide from someone like that? Let's keep going. So they hid themselves from the presence. They're hiding themselves from his presence of the Lord. So his presence is not everywhere then, because how can you hide from his presence? God amongst the trees of the garden. Genesis 3:9. And the Lord God called unto them and said unto him, where are you? Where art thou? He doesn't know where they are, but yet he can see everyone and see everything. But he's calling and asking, where are you? Genesis 3:10. And he said, I heard the voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. Genesis 3:11. And he said, who told thee? Another question. He doesn't know. Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree? So he still doesn't know that they've eaten of the tree. Because he's supposed to know, whereof I commanded you, thee that thou shouldn't not eat. You can hear the Shakespeare in this, right? 3:11, 3:12. And the man said, the man now, he's a coward, he starts blaming the woman. The woman whom you gave to me, thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. Then the Lord says in Genesis 3:13, and the Lord God said, remember, someone is talking and telling you the story because they're saying what he said. And the Lord God, so this is all hearsay, by the way. And the Lord God said unto the woman, what is it that thou hast done? So he still doesn't know what she's done. And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me. So the serpent that you created, God, to be the most cunning beast, I'm innocent. I don't know anything. I don't even know how old I am because they just tell you that she was created, but they don't tell you what age she was, right? But anyway, you created this serpent that can con and beguile anyone, and I got beguiled by your creation, and I did eat I did eat. Genesis 3:14. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed. But why did he allow him to do it in the first place? Why created him in the first place? Why created him to be the most cunning in the first place? So he carries on. Thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and thus shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. Do a little bit of research. There are no snakes that eat dust. But here he's telling you, go on your belly and you shall eat dust for the rest of the days of your life. And then here he goes again. This is your God of the Bible. And 3:15, and I will put enmity, that's hatred, between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his. So we can go on and on and on. And I could go from the beginning of the book to the end in Revelations, and you will see nothing but pure confusion.
Was the serpent Inky trying to awaken them to truth and wisdom?
Is that it?
Was the serpent
Okay, I
Inky
got it.
trying to awaken them to truth and wisdom?
No, it wasn't Enki, it was Ningish Zida. That's who was trying to teach her and show her that the God that you're talking about, which is Enki and Enlil and the Elohim, they're the ones that are lying to you and telling you that if you eat this fruit, you're going to die. But what they know is that you're going to see through them. You're going to see the differences between the disagreeable and the agreeable. Or, in other words, to know good from bad so that you know who is trying to trick you and who is lying to you. So, the God of the Bible was lying to them. And that's who you're talking about when you're saying Enki and the Anunnaki, but Ningishzida was telling her the truth because when they ate the fruit, they did not die. But there's levels to every story. When we break it down, we'll give you the actual facts and give you the details why we say study the scrolls that the master teacher, Parnavabianun, puts out.
On Matthew 14,
Okay,
13,
there's more.
21, whereby Jesus was feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread. I just need a clarity there. Which
Matthew what?
Jesus in Genesis 3? Last question. On Matthew 14, 13, 21, whereby Jesus was feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread. I just need a clarity there. Which Jesus in the Bible is credited with feeding thousands of people with simple few loaves of bread? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Was that Matthew 14:13?
2, 14, 13, 21.
One more time.
Whereby Jesus was
Because I thought it said.
on Matthew 14, 13, 21.
Oh, okay. Matthew 14, 13, 21. Okay, let's have a look. Matthew 14, 13. Well, okay. Okay, boy, it's like a Bible class today. Matthew 14, 13. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth and saw the great multitude and was moved with compassion towards them. And he healed the sick. 18. And he said, bring them hither to me. No, that, yeah? And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke the bread and gave the loaves of his to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And 20, and they did all eat and were filled, and they took up of the fragments that remained 12 baskets full. Well, first of all, do you see how Jesus was murdering the fish? Because they say thou shalt not kill, right? But Jesus just suddenly was able to tell the fish to just die so that he can feed the multitude. But yeah, to answer your question, this would be, according to the story, the real Yeshua, because what happened is that what he was doing, that they're calling miracles, are really actual sciences that he learned when he was in Egypt, which is alchemy and the ability to basically transform or transfigure things. That's why even in that whole story about the crucifixion, he was not crucified, because he had the power of transfiguration, and also the ability to use alchemy, which is what he learned in Egypt. So that would be, out of the 3 that you're referring to, that's not Bar Jesus, and that's not Cleophas, who would be the son of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and Bar Jesus would be Jesus and Mary's son. All right, so this is the real Yeshua of the 3. Okay, is there any more question?
Why is that so-called God just want to tempt everybody and just proving a point? Like that's not God like
Is this a new question?
characters.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Why is
Yeah.
that so-called God just want to tempt everybody and just proving a point? Like
Yeah.
that's not God like characters.
Yeah, because he's a god that likes to set up props so that he looks good, but no one really looks into it and dissect it and say, does that make sense? Like, why would you put people through such stress and chaos if you have the ability to click your fingers and just, like, they tell you he did it in the creation story, he created everything in like 6 days, but then he rested because he was tired on the 7th day. How do you get tired if you're God? How is it that if it takes you 6 days to do everything, but you could do it in a click of a finger? Why did it take 6 days then? Oh, he had to wait to see that things were good or bad. So he doesn't know it's going to be good before he creates it. Because in the case of man, he says it grieved him that he had made man. And then he wasn't happy about it because man turned out to be bad. But then you knew, if you know everything, the same thing with the angel going bad story of the devil. Like, you ask people, why did he create the devil? Then they'll make excuses because he wants to test you. But he knows the outcome according to what you teach. So yeah, he's a God that just likes to. That's why we say that can't be our God. Our God cannot be a wimp or a God that has to set the scene up to look like he's the hero, but he actually didn't do anything. You see, like, he will send his son to come and die for your sins, but he could have stopped all of that happening, going through that drama of being born, having to suffer, run away, go to Egypt to hide. Like the best you can do as God, right? Instead of removing the threat, which will be Herod, right? Herod is out to kill all the firstborn or the boys that are being born to prevent this king of the Jew that's coming because he's afraid his throne is at risk. And the best God can do is to tell Joseph and Mary to take Jesus and run away and go and hide until Herod dies. Huh? Why doesn't he just get rid of Herod? That would make more sense. That's to show you what I mean by he sets up the scene and makes it all dramatical and the sensationalism. The whole thing about the Moses going to free the people and the Israelites and then coming part in the Red Sea, which was the Reed Sea, by the way, but there was a mistake, so they took out one of the E's and now it's the Red Sea. But it's all dramatical. It's like you should know that this God really doesn't have the power that people claim and give to him because they say he can do everything and anything. But when we say, why doesn't he? Then they make excuses for him. It doesn't make sense. Why doesn't he just get rid of the devil, get rid of all the devilishment, stop all the wars, stop all the famine, clean all the diseases away from the planet? He's supposed to be able to do all of these things. But when we say, oh, you're blaspheming because he's not supposed to be questioned. So you must remain with your eyes closed, wide shut, so that you can keep being lied to for thousands of years. Well, not anymore. Wu-Sabat is here to clear up and give you the actual facts. But yeah, so that's the question. The answer to that question is like he's not able to do the things that they claim he can do because you're really talking about Elohim. You're talking about the sons and the Anunnaki, the Enlils and your Enkis who are referred to as Yahweh and Baal in the Bible, but people are giving them all this power, but yet they fight amongst each other. We have a book called The Conflicts Between the Gods. Get hold of that. Search it. All the books I'm saying you can just search on Nashat, nashat.co.uk, and you will find them, all right? But yeah, let's go back to the chat because I'm pretty sure there are many questions in the chat. Yeah, remember you can call in live. Okay, all right, no problem. Who lied to the woman? Oh yeah, we've just answered that. Nakash, the whisperer who lied to the woman. Okay, we're dealing with Ningish Zuda. This God lied to the woman. Okay. Okay, let me see. I think I've covered all the questions that are on the chat at the moment.
Rahubat. Second, this is still Esteem Butuma from South Africa. My last question is, I would like to know, Menir, why do people consistently blame Satan for bad things that happen? When I spoke of people, I'm making a reference particularly to the religious people, particularly the Christians. The Christians. When the Bible explicitly states it clearly that who gives lives and takes it away, with a clear reference, if you can look at in the book of Job 1:21 and also Deuteronomy 32:39, lastly 1 Samuel 2:6. Sir, it's really puzzling that people wouldn't hold God accountable for life's hardships. Instead, they shift the blame to Satan. So I'd like to know, sir, what is behind the tendency to attribute life's ups and downs to different entities, despite the biblical narratives? Thank you, sir. That's my last point. Thank you.
No problem, I'm coming. I've got a scroll I want to show you quickly. We've got so many. The questions you're asking, really, and I realized something because some people say because we're teaching the hereafter doctrine, meaning that the master teacher covered all of this. Here you go. The master teacher covered a lot of this information in the what we call the God series, books like these. That question you just asked, I'm going to read from here, right? This one is called "Does God help His own?" Not that one. The one I want to read. Yeah, this is the one I want to read from. Whose God is responsible? Because, and I asked the question earlier on: is God a wimp? Right? This one as well. Look, does God and the devil exist? These were the scrolls he was putting out to demystify and clarify the entire thing to do with God. And I'm going to read this excerpt. It says, this pamphlet is entitled, Whose God is Responsible, meaning for the conditions of the world and all that live in it. Each religious denomination, especially the three organizations, namely Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, will claim that their God, who to the Jews is Yahweh, and to the Christian is Theos, Christ incarnate, and to the Muslims is Allah. They'll claim that is loving, caring, and in control of everything that happens in all the boundless universes. While these rabbis, preachers, and imams stand before their congregations, whether it is on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, they repeat over and over again God's promise of paradise when you die, God's concern with all of his creatures and creations. Never once do they address the daily condition of the world, the mistakes in creation, the misfits, the deformed, the criminally insane. All of this is blamed on the species in creation called a reptilian or the reptile, which the Jews call Hasatan or Nakash, serpent, and the Christians call dragon, which is another sea creature, and the Mohammedans call shaitan or khanas, a derivative of from the Hebrew version of Satan. This walking and talking snake, referred to in Genesis chapter 1 as subtle or sneaky and conniving, is supposed to be responsible for all of the evil and devilishment that plagues this world. If nature spits up a volcano that is responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, it is not a mistake of God, who is oftentimes mistaken as Mother Nature. So, whose God is responsible for volcanic eruptions? No, it's the evils of those people, because they were not either Mohammedans in worshipping Allah or Christians acknowledging Christ as their personal savior or Jews in acknowledging Yahweh as their God, because they do not belong to one of these denominations. They are heathens, they are infidels, they are disbelievers, and their lives have no value in the God of those religions. First, all the preachers were saying AIDS was a homosexual disease. The preachers were saying that all homosexuals will die because God is mad at them. Then they found out AIDS was not a homosexual disease. So whose God is responsible for homosexuality? The disease AIDS, which is plaguing the world and killing Christians, Muslims, and Jews, the clergy of each of these religions claim that it is a plague from God upon the unrighteous and promiscuousness of the world. Whose God is responsible for AIDS? It is a biological disease, meaning the unrighteous and the promiscuous did not even get a warning because it cannot be seen by the naked eye. It can only be seen in a laboratory. Thus, God has plagued the world with this deadly disease for the sole purpose of what? Ridding the world of promiscuous people, not taking into consideration innocent children who were born with AIDS before they get to the age of promiscuity. AIDS is just one point. This can go on with multiple birth defects, which are responsible for serial killers who just stalk innocent victims who could be Muslims, Christians, or Jews without reason. This could be the criminally insane. Now, let's talk about the criminally insane. The criminally sane. The criminally sane are those judges that have the right to inflict the death penalty upon people who are criminally insane. They criminally sane are also those people who manufacture the weapons that trickle into the hands of the criminally insane, right? I mean, I can go on and on, but he goes on, and I won't read everything, but he's just saying, like, you say thou shalt not kill, But yet a judge can say, give you the death penalty, which is actually sentencing you to death. So in that situation, you're justifying the fact that you're killing. And then it goes on, like the wars. Whose God is responsible for wars? Because wars kill all types of people. And it goes on. And it goes on and on about the different things that, okay, that go on the planet. So that question you've asked is true, because they give you a picture and paint this picture of God being all good, all knowing, all wise, all right and exact, knowing everything, but yet he can't, having all the power to do everything, but he can't do the things we actually really want him to do. Here's a question. Is it true that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction? Answer: yes. The law of action and reaction has to come out of cause and effect. Cause and effect in itself has to come out from cause. First, it's cause, and then it's the effect. The primary interest of human beings should not be cause and effect, action and reaction, but what caused the initial cause or action that caused the effect, the reaction. They go back to the Big Bang and then they'll say that's how it started, instead of saying what caused the environment to be conducive to a Big Bang. Right, we can go on and on. But yeah, these little scrolls, like whose God is responsible, is what we went through during the schools of religion. And the books were written based on questions. And some people were getting offended because we were just asking questions like, does God help his own? Is God a wimp? Because if you look at how he operates, he's not very brave, because if there's danger, as I said, if there's risk, you do not, as God, send your son to go and take care of the problem. And to what? They say, die on the cross to remove sin from the world. Until this day, there's sin. So it was pointless. It was like, why? Why do go through all that drama? Like, because we know that you're really dealing with these Elohim or these Anunnaki being the Anakim that are not as good as people think they are, because you have agreeable and disagreeable in them. But yeah, let's carry on with the questions, because the Bible thing, literally, we can go cover to cover, and we'll be here all day. But really, you should be stepping up to the hereafter doctrine of Wu-Sabat, so that you deal with the conditions now, what's going on right now, and what you need to be doing to prepare for what's coming. Not a lot of people we know, our family, people are still stuck in these religions, and the religion is the spell, because you can see the truth in front of your face plainly and will still turn away. And if you're one of those people, there's very little we can do for you, because you have to perform that exorcism on yourself. If you're not going to listen and learn and move on, then we're just going to be going around in circles with you. So, all right, let's go back to the chat. You got more? All right, let's go for the voice.
Can you explain to our people the Neteru on whether they was a people or a way of life?
The Neteru were people. This is where you get the, like I said, like in every culture, these beings, the divine beings, the Neteru, today, we give you the proper tones, which is the Neteru, okay? The Neteru are the original descendants of the Riskians, right? The Riskians or the Shuyuk are beings that come from a planet called Risk. They are the ones that seeded this planet with life form, our life form on it. And then we evolved. You have to remember, when we're talking about life and the evolution of life, that's why on that scroll, we were just literally talking about the Big Bang. But the Big Bang is only talking about the beginning of our universe. Yeah. And they don't know or didn't know about the ones before. So when we're saying the beginning, it depends how far back you're going, because there were times where the planet was just like methane and ammonia. These are gases, right? Where we go back to the gases known as ether or nine ether, the etheric gases, going back 76 trillion years ago, right? And we give you the timeline in our book, Fast Track, as well as in the Holy Tablets and many books. Like our sun alone was formed, as I said, 93 billion years ago. That's to give you a bit of just time frame, right? When you're talking about the crash of Nibiru to on Meldic and then into Tiamat, that's like 24 billion years ago. So you have to remember, when I was talking about the meteorite hitting the planet, there were different ones. The first one will be 17,250,000 years ago. Another one, as I said, 2,250,000 years ago. But in between all of this, you had different, like periods. The Triassic period, what the people talk about, like the dinosaurs and all of that. So, what was the question? I forgot the question. It was saying about oh yeah, the Neteru. So the Neteru seeded this planet by way of the dolphins putting their DNA and their genes into capsules that were inserted into the dolphin, and then the dolphins, right, came in these in the waters, and the capsule then dissolved to germinate the water, and it was over millions of years to the point where you had beings called the Ogdoads, right? These are the first Egyptian beings that most people refer to, that came out of the waters, right? And these beings, then you get to the nine Enneads, and then like I said, they evolved on the planet way, way before any other beings came on the planet. These beings evolved to be in what we call the Patarites, and Patar meaning the first or the opener, the first one, right? So when we're saying the Neteru, this is like by the time you're dealing with ancient Egypt, meaning pre-dynastic, these beings are the Neterat or the Neteru, right? Which people make into like fictitious characters, but they were real people. It had offspring, they had children, they had wives. And so these are the beings that you're calling the Neteru. The word Neteru actually ties into the word nature, because they came out of nature, evolved out of nature. They were very in tune with nature, and we are their offspring. Before you had other beings coming here from other star systems and mixing their DNA with them to produce hybrids and produce all types of beings, which we've mentioned in Genesis 6:4, for example. But then you had other beings like that came from different places, like the Hindu beings, like the beings from Arcturus, the beings from Aldebaran, the beings, because remember that Tarnush, who people can ask who's Tarnush. Tarnush is who people are calling the devil, but in the sense of he had ancient names. So in Egypt, he was referred to as Apophis. In different cultures, he was known by different names, like Humbaba or Tarnush. Tarnush is the father of Halal, or who they call Iblis. And Iblis means to rebel. So when you hear a name, a lot of the times you have to remember that depending on the language that name is being translated from, you will get the meaning of the word. Like when I said Iblis, it means rebellious one, or the one that rebelled, because that word picks up in the Quran when it's talking about, when Adam was created, everyone was asked to prostrate, 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 yeah, bow down, basically, prostrate in front. Was it? Yeah, prostrate. Yeah, I'm thinking of prostrate as in the cancer for a minute. But yeah, so they were asked to bow down to him, and Iblis refused. But there's a reason and a deeper meaning to why he refused, because anyway, forget that. But anyway, so we're saying that this Neteru is dealing with those original beings in ancient Egypt, their people. Okay, to answer your question directly. But you know, we always give you more than you bargained for. So let's go on to the next one if there's another one.
Rahubat Sakim, this is Delilah calling from the United States, Florida. Well,
Rahubat.
not actually United, but the States. However,
the
my
the
question
United the
is
Snakes. No, go on,
the
go.
spirit guides that are significant with the Yoruba people of West Africa and specifically the Orisha and the different spiritual guides or the messengers of the Supreme. My question is, what is their relation or position, or how is it used or referenced in Wu-Sabat culture? If it isn't, or if it is, could you answer that for me, please? I was watching a video, and in the video on YouTube, the person was basically breaking down the different gods and their responsibility in regarding the people or us as human beings, or if I guess from the you.
Okay. Um. Okay. So really, they're talking about ancestral worship, but as we've explained many times, and I will again, is that in Wu-Sabat, there are aspects of what we do, tying into the question about the Neteru, where we give reverence and we communicate with and we contact our ancestors because we know that we are them and they are us, and we know that they have crossed over and they're on the other side and they can guide and help us. But what has happened, and we term that being an animist, right? And an animist is someone who recognizes the value of nature, that we're from nature, that we are in tune with nature, and that we can work with and be in union or one with nature. And our ancestors are the same. And as spirit guides or beings are on the other side, as spirits, as soul beings, as etheric beings, we can communicate with them and they can help us on this side. But what's happened with Yoruba and the Ife, which has become popular now, is that it has been invaded, desecrated by other cultures who deal with blood sacrifice or some type of sacrifice. And we don't practice anything to do with sacrificing life, as in animals or humans or hens, chickens, goats, or using blood in those rituals that have found their way into what people are calling Ife or Yoruba now, which was not the original practices. So yes, in terms of ancestral, we don't even worship. We call it ancestral union or communication, and our rituals that we do are very clean, very pure, very in tune with nature. So we don't advocate or support or deal with any of that. And what happened is that a lot of the Arabian practices, a lot of like the Phoenicians and other people that, because when you say those, some of those names like Oba, or we say Obatala, or we say Oba Ta'ala, you can hear Allah clearly in there to show you the influences by the Arabians or the Arabs. So some of these practices, because you go into Islam and they do blood sacrifices, right? They may say it's halal, which they term lawful, because they say if you then unalive an animal in a particular way and drain the blood, and as long as you say so, honestly, it's become a brand. It's a logo because people can just stick a halal logo and say the meat is halal and you don't know the difference. But we are not supposed to be eating flesh or blood meat anyway. So to answer your question, Wu-Sabat is where you really need to be at. You need to learn the proper tones, the proper rituals, and who you're communicating with and speaking with, not just any random. And some of these, when you start to look into the Orishas and look at what they represent, some of them are very aggressive and violent. And like I said, there is the true way and there is a false way, or the one that most people today are practicing, just like everything else, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and all the other religions today. You have been tricked where you're doing falsehood but thinking is good, but you won't know that unless you know the original practices and what is the right way. This is why the whole thing in the garden about Adam and Eve and their eyes being open was so that they will know good from evil. And today, most people don't know good from evil because you've been beguiled, you've been lied to. And unfortunately, it's a hard pill to swallow, but you have to wake up and smell the coffee if you're really serious about truth and knowing the truth. And the truth is here for anyone who would like to know. And it means that once you know the truth, it will make you free if you allow yourself to be free and to release the bondage that you're in. But people don't want to sometimes. They want to hold on to because they're afraid. But why are you afraid? You're afraid of the same God that you're worshipping going to punish you and put you in hell. So you don't even know if hell exists. You don't know if heaven exists. But you're stuck in this limbo state because you're afraid. But Wu-Sabat is here to help you and guide you and give you the righteousness and give you the right information, the right knowledge, the right wisdom so that you can learn to actually use sound, right reasoning, which is a higher level of thinking. All right. So yeah, that's the answer for that question. Have we got a second part or is that it?
Yeah, I don't know much about dreams, but I know I always have dreams and visions of just me, my family, different, just people just like almost being charged up from the sun. And like it's always like they third eye like just burst open. Like I don't know, I just don't know how to explain the dream. I was saying that to say too, I guess now that's why I get out and ground and really meditate and really through that and really changing my diet really helped me just find my way, find the truth and with the help of you guys always posting on YouTube. So just much gratitude for everything and just keep posting, keep waking up the people.
Thank you. And we want you to start helping because each one teach one, each one reach one, each one teach one. And that's how we can change the conditions that we face on this planet and we can reverse, the programming. And a lot of people are waking up, which is good. But honestly, you would think there would be more people, but the spell is actually been quite effective. And many people are waking up by the way of Partner Babyanun, Dr. Malachi ZK York, breaking the spell. And each person that wakes up, that knows the truth, should then help and teach and help others also to wake up. Yeah, dreams are personal for you. The sun is powerful because the sun is what charges up this planet and the sun gives us vitality. So yeah, we have to, we get the vitamin D from the sun, especially for, melanin dominant beings. That helps you to recharge. So yes, get as much sun as you can. And we're in the sun cycle, or people say the age of Aquarius, the Aquarian age. We have a live caller. Greetings, Rahubat. Who's calling? Where you calling from, and what's your question, please?
Hello, is it okay if I ask two questions?
Yeah, it's fine. Rahubat. You can ask two questions. Go
Cool.
ahead.
Greetings, positivity.
Likewise. Go ahead.
Should I ask him directly or just ask you?
No, ask the question. You're live.
Oh, I am.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry to sorry.
it's okay.
First question was, in the modern Western civilization where um, black people um, have basically adopted a lot of westernized shoes, trainers, and also like more formal footwear. It's caused a lot of deformity in feet, a high number in the black community of corns and bunions and whatnot. And the thing is, the feet is a very important part of the body that is underestimated.
Yeah,
And I'm just wondering, what's the view from the teacher?
yeah, you're 100% correct because what it is that we really, if you go back to nature, you're supposed to walk bare feet because you can connect with the earth, going back to us being, beings of nature, and that fact that
Right,
you have a sun in the inner world or the center of the planet. You have a sun within you known as the solar plexus, and of course we have the
right,
sun above us. The three of
right.
them are supposed to align, and when you look at that, you have a direct like light going from the sun outside through your pineal gland, through your the center of your being, as in where all your chakras are, down to your feet. And if you look at your feet, for those who study reflexology and things like that, your feet connect to the different parts of your body and your organs, and then your feet supposed to connect to nature, to the ground, and to the central sun
Excellent.
in the earth. So you are constantly aligned. But by cutting, what they've tried to do is cut you off from the sun above, cut you off from the sun below, and then dim your
Mm.
sun in the middle of your being so that you're completely not aligned. And so, like you say, the rubber and the footwear that we wear is designed to do that disconnection. Because when we're
So
talking about,
basically,
yeah, go on.
yeah. So basically, it's a disconnection from the earth, and it's a deformity of the foot to basically do a double impact, as you could say.
Exactly. And it's the same from above because once they realized, especially for Negroids, that our hair was an antenna when we used to have the
Right.
afro, because the follicles come out of your
Wow.
skull and grow in the number nine, and that's why the sun, the sun that they was referred to as Shamsa, or the word Samson comes from that because they were saying that his power is in his hair, right? And so they were
Right, right.
basically trying to destroy your hair because your hair is like an aerial or an antenna that will pick up the energy from the sun. But what they didn't realize, this
Wow.
is why a lot of black people stopped wearing what they're called afros. We call it a
Mm.
natural. And they started to like relax their hair and straighten their hair and kill it because they were trying to
Yeah.
stop it from having that activation, not realizing
Right,
that
right.
it's actually inside your head, right? So whether or not the hair outside is there, but the follicles come from inside your head, and that ties into
But
like, sorry, you have the nine
I
magnetic.
thought a lot of the ancients had bull heads.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter if you have the hair outside or not because it's internal. But
Oh,
what,
okay, I see, I see,
yeah,
I see, I
when
see.
they realized this, because they thought it was only the external, because that was a unique trait that all the Africans had, where they called us soul people. You go back and look at the 60s where you had like, the OJs and the Jackson Five and what I mean,
I
the Blue
noticed that
Notes.
they
Everybody
had
was,
more, yeah,
yeah,
Afro, yeah.
right. So, but what happened is when they recognized that it was inside, this is where the music started to be changed so that people would mess up their brain, because with the headphones and the synthetic music, So anyway, to answer your question, I'm saying that your connection from your feet all the way to your pineal gland, all the way to the outer sun, aligns with your
Wow.
inner sun and the sun in the center of the earth in Shambhala. So yeah, it's a design to cut you off, and then the inner sun within you, which is where you really need to get in tune with yourself to get. That's why you have to look inward, you see. But by cutting you off on all fronts, basically you're dim. But now people are starting to recognize that. Some people will go to nature and walk on the ground, you know what I mean, to ground themselves.
It
And
feels nice when I walk barefoot.
yeah, but of course you're living in the West, and you're living where now it's dangerous. You can't walk barefoot on the pavement because everybody
Yeah,
spits
and there's
on
a
the
lot of
floor.
insecurities of, especially in a lot of black men, to have their feet out.
Yeah, because like you said, a lot of people have damaged their feet. A lot of the females have damaged their hair because of the bleaching and all of that, and wearing the wigs and all of that, the gluing on. So it's attacking you from
Madness.
both ends, if you like. And now you gotta try and take it all off. Like if your hair's all messed up, shave it all off, start again. Your feet, get them looked at, go into nature, and yeah, basically ground yourself again and reconnect with nature. And then you start to be on the road to recovery, because nature will help you heal. You see, so yeah, that's a great question.
That was definitely a serious, in-depth, scientific and spiritual view from yourself. Most definitely.
Thank you. You said you had another question.
Yes. What I was going to ask is this: is that, as you've said before, and I don't see myself as a human on a pedestal. I have an understanding in theory that we're a bit of a shadows of our former self, as in you've explained that we're missing glands in our brain, our telomeres are a bit inferior, and our bone density is lower. So basically, we're not living as long as our ancient ancestors and so forth.
Right.
Would it be ethical for us to use plant or bacteria or animal DNA to repair our DNA to get back to, a bit upgrade ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point of once you recognize what's killing you by way of the things you're intaking, not just the foods, but like everything you intake by way of the air you're breathing, you know what I mean, the food you're eating, the lights that you're subjecting yourself to. There's so much synthetic stuff that is coming at you, and as a being that is an electromagnetic being, you actually absorb a lot of the frequencies and all the stuff that's coming at you. So the best way is to start to go plant based. It is for you to start to drink lots of water, connect with nature, start to, you know what I mean,
Right, right,
align
right.
yourself back with.
A more natural way of trying to
Exactly.
repair our
Yes,
DNA.
exactly. Listen to more natural sounds, because music even affects you, So yeah, like even the whole like being, instead of being constantly having acidic diets, you got to go the other side, alkaline, you see,
Yeah,
and just yeah, stop eating the things that are really no good for you. They have very little nutritional value. We're addicted to salt. We're addicted to sugar. We're addicted
yeah.
to eating a lot of things that are not really good for us. So it is about you repairing by really stopping all of that and going plant based, and or vegan if you can. And it's a work in progress, but you'll see the difference the minute you start to eradicate these, these things that are harmful to us, and then your DNA will start to actually repair itself. You see, that's the point. Like you
Okay.
can repair your DNA, and even you can extend your life by way of your telomeres because it's programmable, and that's the way they know that, and they program it to give you the adverse effect as opposed to you knowing. And all you have to do is reverse and like do everything that is, that is good for you, and you will start to see the difference. Like, stop the alcohol, stop going out, being at, places late when you're supposed to be sleeping and repairing
Yeah,
your
yeah,
melanin, your serotonin, and all of that. It's all a science, but you have to be taught and learn
most
how
definitely,
to do
most
it.
definitely.
Yeah. All right. I hope that
Thank
helps.
you.
You're welcome.
No, no, most definitely. That's very in depth. Definitely.
Thanks. All
Okay.
right.
Positivity to yourself and to the rest of your
Team.
conglomerate.
Yeah. Thank you. Likewise.
All right then.
All right.
Cool.
All right. Cool. Let me go through these questions before. Wow. 21:21. Last time I looked at the time was 1919. All right. Let's try and run through some of these quickly because there's some good questions here. This is echelon mind. Is masturbation a reincantable offense? I like the way you say offense. You have to recognize what it's doing. That's what you have to. Everything like we were saying, cause and effect. Yeah, it depends on the circumstance, the situation, why. But if it's tying into pornography and stuff like that, it actually reprograms your brain and leaves. It's kind of like when you say an offense, it kind of makes it sound religious, but we're not like you're damned for good because you did that. But what we're saying is that you don't want to create grooves or habits that become ingrained in your being that will have an effect on you, on your spiritual growth and so forth, right? So it's not an offense in that sense, but we'll have to go more into detail about that another time. Ryan Lewis, I heard on medical research view that we covered already. I'll cover that. I'm glad we're talking about cover that. Okay, there's a fun. Ray, thank you, Ray. Ray says you look healthy. What do you do to look so clean? Um, you know what? The first thing, right, is your state of mind because everyone vibrates on a particular frequency and vibration. And I think you've got to learn how to maintain that vibration, meaning that you can be in contact and around people or energies and beings that can agitate you and create chaos. You have to learn and know how to be able to bring yourself to that vibration that keeps you on that frequency. And so that's one thing you need to learn to do. So no matter what's going on around you, the chaos and everything, mentally and emotionally, you're balanced at all times. You have to understand that when you're engaging with people and things, people, places, and things, there's a pulling and a pulling force, or centrifugal and centripetal forces that are constantly at play. Someone is trying to gain from you, or you're giving away. So it's always like give and take. And a lot of times you can be depleted, or people will draw energy from you without you even being aware of it. Being aware means that you can balance yourself and know when to have your shield up, or what we call a psychic self-defense. These are things that we teach you in Wu-Sabat, and you have to learn and develop to practice them. So it's like there could be chaos going on around you, but inside you, you're centered, and it's not even having an effect on you because mentally you're practicing and using the right things. And then the other thing is, have you heard about when people say love and hate? I think the lyrics, Dennis Brown, love and hate can never be friends. Here I come with love and not hatred. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow I. Right. So I'm saying that the person, the being that you are, is what governs your state of mind, and everything governs your vitality and how you look and how you come across. So you notice, for lack of a better word, good, calm, caring people will generally have that type of aura, energy, persona, and then that green light is in abundance around us. You have to learn and know how to draw that healing green light energy that you see around the master teacher to constantly heal you. But obviously the other things like the diet, what you eat, resting, good thoughts, mindfulness, kindness, not being easily influenced or drawn into people's drama and chaos, all of that helps. Yeah. But yeah, we're all still work in progress. You know, there's a lot more to be done, and you can't help but being around certain environments. So you know, it's a work in progress to be able to be around the type of environment that's conducive to help you grow, not just physically but spiritually as well, right? Okay. Yeah, Wu-Sabat as well, teaching the truth. Truth is also something that will help you a lot, you know, teaching the truth. All right, let's go to Dorinda. When we transition after 2030, will we still reincarnate or will the system be totally different? Dorinda, everything is not just based on 2030. Like I say, we got to focus on now as well. And the whole point is not to come back. We didn't used to reincarnate. This is, you know, something that started to happen because we don't have the guidance and the correct instructions. Because before you were coming here to do something, it's like, think about it like this, yeah? You go to do an errand, like, you don't want to keep going back to do the same thing over and over again because you didn't do it properly the first time. Like, imagine you went to the shop to get something and that was it. You're meant to go, come back, that's it. But you go to the shop, you forget something. So now you have to go back again. And when you come back, you forgot something again. And then you can see how irritating it can be. Like, you have to keep going back because you didn't do what you were supposed to do the first time correctly. And that's the problem with a lot of us. We don't listen and do what we're supposed to do the first time. It has to be repeated over and over and over again before we get it. So the mission was never for you to continuously reincarnate. And your system will definitely be different in 2030 because depending on what happens and what takes place, and if you even make it to 2030, because many people are not going to make it to 2030 based on the things that are going to take place. And why we keep stressing, you need to be under the right guidance, Pana Babyanun, and to do that, we need to free him so that we need to rebuild a lot of things that we need to utilize to transform ourselves. And we had a lot of these things on Tamaray, Egypt of the West. But because we were not all as elevated in tune that we're supposed to be, we allowed it to be taken away. And now we have to rebuild everything. And we need your help. We need everyone who's really about this. Because what happens is a lot of people talk the talk. I have to keep saying it because over the years, you meet so many different people. Some people just come, they get the information, they love it, it's a buzz, and slowly it's like they slide away. Some come, they're very enthusiastic, they want to build, they want to do this, let's do this, let's do this. Then they don't keep up. So it just, by way of your actions and what you actually do, go to the communities, go to the stores, get involved. I'm telling you, man, the closer you get, the more you get to learn and know, the better off you are. So let's focus on now. We are preparing for 2030, but don't focus on will we reincarnate. In fact, you may never make it and never able to come back. All right, let's keep going. We're running out of time, so I've got to be quick. Yeah, you're right. 90% of Africans still think someone will come and save them, and that's what it's designed to do, to have you idle or not do anything. What are you doing? How can I help? I want to get out of America. Connect with us. You got all the links. Come talk to us. We're on the Telegram group. We can have conversations, and then we're very, very accessible. Like you said, we do classes live every Tuesdays, live every Saturdays. We answer questions throughout the week on Telegram. You can send us questions, 3 questions, as you know. We answer them for you. You can book a one-to-one with me. there's so much angles and avenues that you can connect with us. So you make that move, right? If you really want it. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Let me see. That was a great question, actually, in terms of how can you help. That's what we want to hear, people actually putting it into action. Unfortunately, anyone whose question hasn't been answered, I'm teaching this Saturday. You can ask then, or wow, we got a lot of questions we didn't get to answer. What do you think? Should we wrap it up? Yeah. All right. Let me see if I can. Let me look at see if there's any like burning questions that I could cover today. Where can I buy the books? Nashat.co.uk. We'll put that in the chat. What does the trumpet represent in the Bible? It represents President Trump and what he's doing, and that trumpet has been blown, and you know, or shall I say, represents that that seat and what the actions of Thorn is, right? Again, come close and ask the questions. Look at what's going on around the world. Teaching without being anointed by us is false and destructive behavior. I don't know what is. That's not really a question. Teaching without being anointed by us is false and destructive behavior. I don't know who's us, but if you mean Wu-Sabat and all that, then fair enough. Rahobat family, Crystal City crew, get ready for takeoff. Peace in the Lamb is truly wonderful. True that. Rahobat, can you please give the title of the hair video done by OSM products from India video? I have no idea what that is about. Can you please give the title of the hair video done by OSM? Okay, maybe that's a miss. We'll have to look into that. Inoculation and on the flood still. And they lied about the ancient people not having hair. So can our locks okay for our hair? It depends on what you're calling locks, because there are different types of locks. What people are calling locks today is not what was being said as locks in the Bible or the scriptures. It's the locks of the scriptures, like when you twist your hair. But the locks that you get, the it's matted and you can't clean it and it's unhealthy. That's completely something different. But if you know how to do it properly nowadays, where it's clean and so forth, yeah, there's nothing wrong with wearing locks. Barefoot contact is called grounding. Yeah, we covered that. Good question. How can the voice walk? I think, yeah, it's mob versus mafia mentality. Yep. There is no more hell, Uranus, and okay, I think. Oh, can you speak on the real cause of cancer in the so-called Black Americans? Yeah, I mean, we're not giving medical advice, disclaimer, yeah? But there's so many things causing cancers now. Most of it is by the food you eat, the microwaves, the ions that you take in, which are small, tiny metals that get stuck in your system, and over time, those metals rust and they cause all types of ailments. And this is why we have health products, and you can cleanse your colon and detox and get rid of a lot of the metals, and include certain things that people did in the pandemic. Yeah, there's so much of that question, because there are different types of cancers at different stages. Like you mentioned, the prostate one. Again, there's so much we can talk about that, but we've run out of time. Sean Wilson, I walk eternity out alone. I have pathed away for Cain to come to end. This is over. Okay, that's yeah. A lot of the animals, Rosalind, the lot of the animals are in tune with nature, and a lot of them have been affected by so many things that's been done. So yeah, a lot of them are now also ill, sick, just like the human animals. Okay, I think we've covered as much as we can today. We went over by 5 minutes, but it's all good because we appreciate love you all. We love the questions. OSM is that channel that gives you nothing but actual facts and truth. And until next week, same time, same place. But tune in on Saturday as well to the classes where you can have more questions answered. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and if you can, definitely become a member of this channel. Help us grow the channel. Let's build. That's what we're about, all right? Let's bring Partner Babylon home, right? ASAP. All right, so Tawakum, Wu Wadu. I mean, thank you all, and bye for now.